Most people who struggle financially are not struggling because they lack information. They know compound interest exists. They know saving is better than spending. They know debt is expensive. The gap is not between knowledge and ignorance. The gap is between knowing and doing, and the reason that gap exists is not laziness or lack of willpower. It is that the right financial behaviors feel, in any given moment, indistinguishable from doing nothing. You put $200 into an index fund, and your life looks exactly the same as it did before. The feedback is invisible. The reward is years away, and most human brains are not built to stay consistent with something they cannot feel working. The 5 habits in this video are built around that problem. Small enough to start today, automatic enough to run without you, and designed to compound quietly in the background for as long as you leave them alone. Habit 1. Pay yourself first. The first habit sounds the most like common sense and gets ignored the most completely. Here is why. The behaviors required to build wealth feel, in any given moment, indistinguishable from doing nothing. You transfer $200 to a brokerage account and your life looks exactly the same as it did before. The feedback loop between what you do and what you get is measured in years, not days, and most human brains are not built to stay motivated by feedback they cannot feel. Habit 1 is designed specifically around that problem. Pay yourself before you pay anything else. Not after rent, not after groceries, not after you see what is left at the end of the month, because what is left at the end of the month is almost always nothing. Every dollar that passes through a checking account without a specific destination will find one, and the destination will not be your retirement account. It will be the thing you needed slightly, or the thing the algorithm decided you wanted, or the ordinary friction of existing in a consumer economy. The mechanism for this habit is automation. Not discipline, not intention, not a monthly reminder to transfer money to savings. Automation. You set up a recurring transfer from your checking account to a brokerage or savings account on the day your paycheck clears. Before you have seen the money, before you have thought about what you need, before the money has established itself in your mind as available. The amount starts wherever you are. If you can do $50, do $50. If you can do $200, do $200. The specific number matters far less than the act of removing it from the spending pool before the spending pool has a chance to absorb it. The behavioral research behind this habit is not new. When employers introduced automatic enrollment in 401k plans, replacing opt-in with opt-out, participation rates jumped from roughly 49% to over 86% within 3 years at the companies studied. The money available to employees did not change. The job did not change. The only thing that changed was whether the default behavior required action or inaction. Inertia, which is the enemy of most financial improvement, becomes the mechanism of financial improvement the moment you set the default correctly. This is what paying yourself first actually does. It converts inertia from a liability into an asset. When employers switched 401k enrollment from opt-in to opt-out, participation rates jumped from 49% to over 86% within 3 years. Nothing changed except the default. Inertia, the enemy of most financial improvement, becomes the engine of it the moment you set the default correctly. The specific mechanics matter. The transfer should happen on payday, not at the end of the month. It should go to an account that is not your primary checking account, ideally one at a different bank or at a brokerage, because the small friction of transferring money back makes it slightly less likely you will raid the savings when you feel the temptation. The amount should be fixed and recurring, not variable and dependent on how good the month felt. Variable savings plans fail because the bad months, the ones where saving feels hardest, are exactly the months when the variable approach produces zero. The fixed recurring transfer works because it does not ask how the month felt, it just runs. Habit 2. Price everything in time, not dollars. The second habit is a reframe more than a behavior, but the reframe changes the behavior permanently once it takes hold. It costs nothing to implement. It requires no app, no account, no setup. It requires one change to the question you ask when you are about to spend money. Stop calculating the price of things in dollars and start calculating it in hours of your life. A $180 pair of shoes costs not $180, but however many hours of your after-tax time that $180 represents. If you take home $22 an hour, those shoes cost 8 hours of your life, not your money. Your time, which is the thing you traded for the money, and the thing you cannot get back. This sounds abstract until you apply it to a real purchase decision, at which point it becomes one of the most clarifying tools in personal finance. Most things that feel affordable in dollar terms feel different when priced in time. A $600 monthly car payment on a vehicle that depreciates every month costs not $600, but however many hours of your working life that $600 requires. A subscription you use twice a month costs not $15, but the fraction of a working hour you trade for it every 30 days. A restaurant dinner for two at $90 costs not $90, but the block of time you will spend at work next week to cover it. The habit is not to stop spending. It is to spend with the correct denominator. Most people price things in dollars because dollars feel abstract and hours feel real, which is backwards. The dollars come back. The hours do not. Your coworker is a man named Marcus. He has been earning about the same income as you for 6 years, and you have watched without commenting as his car payment grew and his apartment upgraded and his wardrobe expanded and his savings rate stayed essentially flat. He is not irresponsible. He just prices things in dollars. A $400 monthly upgrade to a nicer apartment is $400 to Marcus, which feels manageable. Priced in the hours of his life he will spend earning that $400 every month for the next 3 years. It is something different. Marcus has never made that calculation because nobody showed him the denominator. The habit is just changing the denominator. This habit requires one thing. Before buying something that is not a necessity, divide the after-tax price by your after-tax hourly rate and sit with the number for 30 seconds. Not to talk yourself out of it, to make sure you are choosing it rather than defaulting to it. Most things that pass that test are worth buying. Many that feel automatic in dollar terms look different in time terms, and the ones that look different are usually the ones you did not really want. Habit 3. Automate a $1 per day annual increase. The third habit is one that takes 15 minutes once and then runs without you forever. Most people set a savings rate and never revisit it. That single omission, never increasing the contribution rate as income grows, is one of the most expensive passive decisions a person can make across a working life. It is automating a $1 per day increase to your investment contributions, not $1 per day. $1 per day is an annual increment. Every January 1st, or whatever date you choose, you increase your automatic investment contribution by $600. That is roughly $50 more per month than you contributed the year before. If you are currently investing $200 a month, next year you invest $250 a month. The year after that, $300. The year after that, $350. The reason this habit compounds so dramatically has nothing to do with the size of the increase. It has to do with the fact that contribution increases are the part of long-term investing most people never do. They set a rate at 25 and leave it there until they are 50, which means decades of inflation silently eroding the real value of every deposit. $200 in 2005 is not the same as $200 in 2025. The annual increase costs less each year in real terms because income is likely growing, and it produces portfolio balances at 20 and 30 years that are dramatically different from those of the person who never adjusted. Run the numbers. A person who invests $200 a month for 30 years at a 10% average annual return ends up with approximately $452,000. A person who starts at the same $200 a month but increases by $600 annually ends up with approximately $1.3 million over the same period. The difference is not a different income, not a different market, not a different investment vehicle. The difference is a $600 annual increment, roughly $50 a month more each year, applied consistently for 3 decades. The reason most people never do this is not that they cannot afford the increase. By year 5, when the contribution has grown from $200 to $450 a month, the additional $250 is usually absorbed by income growth that happened naturally over those years. The habit is not extracting more from you. It is capturing some of what the years gave you before your lifestyle can absorb it. Habit 4. The annual subscription audit. The fourth habit generates the most resistance when people hear it, not because it is difficult, but because it requires confronting something most people would rather not look at. You are currently paying for things you have forgotten you are paying for. Almost everyone is. The only question is how much. Audit every recurring charge in your life once a year, not occasionally. Once a year, on a specific date you put in your calendar, you pull up your credit card and bank statements and go through every subscription, every automatic renewal, every membership fee, and you ask one question about each one. Have I used this enough in the last 12 months to justify paying for it again? The audit is not about being cheap. It is about the specific financial phenomenon that behavioral economists call subscription blindness. the tendency to underestimate or entirely forget about charges that recur automatically because the decision to pay them was made once in the past, and the brain does not experience them as active choices the way it experiences a one-time purchase. A $14 streaming service you used 4 times in the last year is not a $14 decision, it is a $14 decision that your past self made and your present self is still paying for without realizing it. The average American household pays for services they do not use. Studies examining bank and credit card statements have consistently found that most people significantly underestimate the number of subscriptions they carry and the total monthly cost of those subscriptions when asked to estimate without looking. The gap between estimated and actual recurring monthly charges is, in study after study, significant enough to matter to a financial plan. The annual audit closes that gap. It does not require frugality or sacrifice. It requires one afternoon per year where you become a deliberate decision maker about money you are already spending rather than a passive payer of commitments your past self made. The process is simple. Pull 12 months of statements, go line by line. For each recurring charge, write down the last time you actively used the service. If you cannot remember, that is the answer. Cancel it or downgrade it and put the monthly cost into the investment account you automated in Habit 1. The typical person who does this audit seriously finds between $80 and $200 a month in charges that are not earning their place. Over a decade, that money invested rather than spent is not a trivial amount. It is a meaningful portion of a financial future. Habit 5. Round up every purchase. The 5th habit feels the smallest and produces the most outsized effect when practiced over decades. It is also the one that most people dismiss fastest because the amounts seem too trivial to matter, which is exactly the wrong way to think about a habit whose entire value comes from invisibility and consistency over time. Round up every purchase to the nearest dollar and invest the difference automatically. Several banking apps and fintech platforms now offer this feature built in. Every time you spend $4.37, 63 cents moves automatically to a savings or investment account. Every time you spend $22.15, 85 cents moves. The amounts are invisible in daily life. They accumulate in ways that are not invisible over years. This habit works not because the amounts are large. They are not. A person who rounds up every purchase will not retire on the roundup alone. The habit works because it converts every spending transaction into a simultaneous saving transaction, which changes the psychological relationship between spending and building wealth. In the standard model, spending and saving are opposites and in competition with each other. Roundup investing makes them happen simultaneously. You spend and you save in the same moment, and the saving requires no additional decision, no additional willpower, no additional moment of choosing the right thing over the easy thing. This habit also does the thing that all 5 habits share. It removes a decision from your daily path. You do not decide to round up. It happens. The transaction processes, the roundup moves, and you experience neither the discomfort of choosing to save nor the guilt of choosing not to. The friction is gone in both directions, and what remains is a slow, automatic accumulation that builds without demanding anything from your finite daily supply of willpower. There is a woman who has been doing your family's taxes for 11 years. Her name is Gloria. She is methodical and precise, and she has seen every variation of financial decision-making that a person can make, from the client who maxed every account and arrived at 65 with more than they needed to the client who earned well for 40 years and arrived with almost nothing, and she has spent 2 decades watching what separated one group from the other. She told you once, sitting across the desk at the end of a long filing season, that the difference between the clients who arrived at retirement with options and the ones who arrived with anxiety was almost never income. It was almost never intelligence or education or luck. It was whether they had built systems that made the right behavior the easy behavior. The clients who were okay, she said, had all done something to make saving harder to skip than to do. She also said something else that stayed with you. She said the clients who struggled were not bad with money in the sense of being reckless or careless. They were bad with money in the sense of never having sat down and decided what they wanted the money to do, which meant the money did what money does when it has no direction. It covered the present and left nothing for the future. The habits are a way of deciding. Not dramatically, not with a financial plan that requires a spreadsheet and a weekend and a degree of certainty about the future you do not have. Just 5 small decisions made once that stay made. That sentence is the organizing principle behind all 5 habits. Pay yourself first automatically, so skipping requires action. Price things in time, so spending requires an honest calculation. Automate contribution increases, so growing your investment rate requires no annual decision. Audit subscriptions, so paying for things you do not use requires surviving a once-yearly review. Round up purchases so every transaction moves a small amount toward your future, whether you thought about it or not. None of these habits produce dramatic daily feedback. None of them will make you feel rich this week or next month. The feedback arrives in the form of a number you check quarterly or annually that is higher than the one you expected, and then higher again the following year, and then higher at a rate that starts to feel less like addition and more like something else, something that moves on its own with a momentum you did not have to create fresh every morning. That is the thing about small habits applied to money over long periods of time. They eventually stop feeling like discipline and start feeling like direction. You have not changed as a person, you are just pointed somewhere specific, and the pointing is doing the work that willpower used to fail at. Most of the people around you are not doing any of these 5 things, not because the habits are secret or complicated or require special access, because the day they were available to start was a day like any other day, and the benefit was invisible and the effort was slightly more than 0, and they moved on. The gap between the financial life most people settle for and the one that is actually available to them is not a gap of income or intelligence or opportunity. It is almost entirely a gap of small, boring, unsexy decisions that compound over a long period of time into something that looks, from the outside, like luck. The habits close that gap, steadily, automatically, whether you are thinking about it or not. Today is also a day like any other. The difference is what you do with the next 15 minutes.